Oh, hi there. Good evening. Um, of course, I want to talk about the Ukrainian-Russian war. Um, from what I've noticed from the internet, I don't know, I'm not specifically looking for anything, but, just on random searches, Brittany Griner is still a topic of conversation. And I had made a video talking about the war and mental health and all that sort of stuff. And, obviously you think of shell shock, the traumatization of war, and the destruction of lives, and all that sort of stuff for the Ukrainian populace. That's definitely the first thing you should think about. However, as it were, hostages are still a real thing, and the most notable one of all is obviously Brittany Griner. Um, what I suspect will be a likely course of action is that the Russian authorities will not treat this like a regular court case, because there's a lot of tension, and also special interest groups that want to see Brittany Griner returned from Russian custody back to the United States. And the thing is, they're going to consider what Brittany Griner did as mental illness. Um, Going up against the Russian juggernaut with an inflated ego, thinking you can just get away with doing things in certain parts of the world, one could easily construe that that is a mentally ill thing to do. And the thing is, the Russians also do not have the same propaganda apparatus that we have in the West. Um, the LGBTKFC, movement, um, is in full swing here in the Western world. And I mean, what people do with their own personal lives, that's their business. And if they have partners who will reciprocate that type of feeling, then that's their business. I really don't care. It's not an important topic for me. However, in Russia, they do not look at that whole movement the same way at all. Yes, that does go on there, but it's not statewide television. There's actually a lot of homosexuality in the Russian army. Um, don't ask me why. I don't inquire into that. Um, However, I will say, because Russia wants to make a stance against Western ideological beliefs as well as economic ones, they're going to deem in what I would think would be the logical point from their perspective as mental illness, which means a whole bunch of medications that will alter Brittany Griner's uh, well, almost everything about her. Her mental well being, her health, all the really important stuff. Her money counts for nothing. And the thing about this sort of stuff is it will, could be anything. We really don't know what the Russian authorities are going to do exactly. I suspect heavy medications, though. Um, Perhaps to feminize her a bit, perhaps to disorientate her, physically make her weaker, look like a beaten animal in a cage once they're done with her, both physically and mentally. I don't care how tough you are. If you're in a prison system, they're gonna break you. That's a fact of life. You cannot get around that, and neither can Brittany Griner, and she doesn't have the political influence to affect change fast enough for her own well-being. And I think they'll have plenty of time, even if she doesn't serve the whole 9.5 years. I think they got plenty of time to work with to really create her into a shell of her former self. She's never going to be that basketball player that she was before. And I do use the word she, fairly loosely because I had heard she was transgendered, which is also could be construed as a mental illness. I think people are allowed to have opinions, and although you're not going to, say or do anything about it, usually in most cases, if somebody wants to think that, you are allowed to think that they're mentally ill for that such a thing. But it turns out she actually is a woman. I would have been thrown off if I saw that across the street walking down the street. I would have gone. I think it was Maury Povich who went, "Is it a man or a woman?" That one is not easy to tell, that's for sure. I do think that Brittany Griner has taken some form of performance enhancing drugs. She doesn't have the chiseled look of someone who's shredded, so she's not, obviously taking the worst of the worst steroids that are in existence. And let's remember, I'm not an expert on steroids, but I do know, all those bodybuilders that are, that do that for a living, they're all on something. And more than likely, all professional athletes on any world stage are also on performance enhancing drugs. And the Russians are the ones who keep getting blamed for the use of such ones. However, the Americans in particular do the same sort of thing, except they have their own versions of things, and therefore they can say that, no, this isn't correct. It's kind of like how in India they have bodybuilders that have insane physical attributes, and that's because they take horse steroids. So, yeah, in the world stage, that's not going to be allowed. I would suspect they don't live very long. But she, as I was saying, Brittany Griner does not have that chiseled look. She's physically gifted in her especially in her height, and she's definitely got strength to her. But as far as saying, is it natural? 100%? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Those sort of drugs, they can create muscles in certain parts of the woman physique that are not obtainable without the use of said steroids. Whatever they may be exactly, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that sort of stuff. If you want to hear what somebody who is somewhat of an expert on it, you'll go to moreplatesmoredates.com, and you'll listen to what he has to say about it, because he is quite knowledgeable. Although, knowing some things about the world, and especially bodybuilding, you can definitely disagree with him on some things, but it's still worth watching anyway. So yeah, back to the breaking down of the arrogance in all shape and form. Brittany Griner will not be permitted to be around anyone who speaks fluently her language, so she would be quite isolated in that regard, I would think, anyway, if they're going to use her for the propaganda tool that they're going to, which is diagnosing her egotism as a mental illness. And let's remember, she took something that was straight up illegal and went to Russia. Again, I didn't check if it was pre-war or post-war or wartime with the Ukrainians, but it happened in February, so it like that war was going to happen, and then anyone should have been able to see that. And if you chose to ignore it anyway because this inflated ego that you might have had, Um, yeah, you could easily say that that's kind of a mental illness. You don't go to a place like Russia and do that. And it in the end, the jail system, prison system, and the mental health system are going to get integrated. Because you could argue that most prison sentences are not actually effective at stopping someone from doing things that another person might construe as being mentally ill. It's mentally ill to do something and it be a crime and have that on as your permanent record. And if you are one of those types of people who will go and do it again afterwards, whatever it may be, then that definitely is kind of a mentally ill thing to do. It's very self-destructive, and it would make perfect sense that both systems get integrated. And I mean, like, I'm sure the food is the most disgusting, nasty, inedible, grotesque stuff to begin with. And I have heard stories from movies that there are you know, particularly men in the prison system who go in and out of it because it's a roof over their head and 3 meals a day, and it's like, yeah, you go ahead and think that. I would suspect that's some sort of a mental illness. I would always strive to do better and not end up in such a horrible place. That's my own opinion. You're not allowed to, you know, say that I cannot have that opinion, because you're entitled to yours, and so long as you aren't causing me grief in some sort of way, then I really don't care what your opinion is. Um, yeah, and as I've said in other videos, just having an opinion about anything is gonna garner you some negative attention. So why not? I will say it. The LGBT KFC, that is a mental illness, in my opinion. Voltaire made a quote of some sorts where he said, "If you cannot question whomever, then they are the ones that rule over you." And to be perfectly honest, I don't think that many people subscribe to that way of thinking anyway. There will be people who are indifferent to it and maybe, go, "Oh, good for you, hooray," and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that many people actually subscribe to that type of thinking. I think the TV straight up lies to people. And right now it's promoting the idea of this whole philosophy that, in a lot of people's minds is illogical. And they say, well, if you talk about it, then the issue will go towards your direction. And it's like, we're not all fish in a tank here. It doesn't make any sense. I think you should be allowed to say that I don't agree with this, and this is why I don't agree with it, and not have to worry about any repercussions if you have a reasonable, sound opinion on this subject. I like to think that I do. So anyway, yeah. The Russians, however, they're a lot more aggressive about their dislike about it. Even though it does happen in the military, I did mention that. That's something I have heard of over the years. And they're not the pushover army the West is presenting of what the Russians are. They keep doing it at every turn, saying, "Oh, look, they're incompetent, they're barbaric, they're this, they're that. They only win victories because of their barbarity, and they're using out-of-date technology because they're stupid and they don't know how to build things." And it's just like, I've already explained all that. That is Western propaganda. No. Tell you what, you don't believe me? Go find a Russian and, and tell them, something that's going to offend them and see how well that goes. Because I wouldn't recommend it. But if you want to prove me wrong, by all means. Um, but don't say I didn't warn you. Um, yeah, so, okay, a lot of horrible things are gonna happen to Brittany Griner. I almost half believed she was transgendered, but I looked it up, and I mean, the internet's lied to me before, but it was a women's basketball league that Brittany Griner was in, so I would presume that it is in fact a woman and not a man pretending to be a woman. Because I know that was a problem in a lot of sports, in particular grappling and wrestling. I had heard of. I don't normally watch that sort of stuff, but I had heard that it was problematic in that because men are, physically stronger than women, and that's an advantage men have over women, but on average. But the thing is, women have their advantages over men in their own regard. So, it's not really an insult. It's saying, that's genetics. That's the way it is. Your average male has more testosterone and is more capable of building muscle than a female. And there are examples where it's unusual, where someone can ascertain, whatever physical characteristics that don't define their specific gender. And Brittany Griner and her particular size and strength is one such example. And then you also got that big gorilla, Serrano Williams, who's just retired. She's kind of different from, the young women who are attractive, usually from Eastern Europe, who play tennis. Whereas it's like, you got somebody who weighs probably 60, 100 pounds less than Serrano Williams, and you expect it to be a fair match, and it's like there has to be other elements involved to determine whether a match is fair or not. And it's the same sort of thing with Brittany Griner. Like, how many other female basketball players are there who can, slam dunk at a 10-foot, basketball hoop? I'm sure I could if I tried, but, I haven't had much interest in that sport, so, I guess someday I'll have to prove it, but we'll find out. Anyway, yeah, a lot of nasty things are gonna happen to her. So I do feel sympathetic a little bit, but oh well, another idiot. Made a stupid move, and now they're in a lot of trouble. And yeah, that's all I got to say right now. Anyway, probably gonna shift on to the next subject of this particular wider topic. Talking about the actual war rather than the prisoner exchange element towards it. And that, lucrative business. And I don't say that in a mean way, I just mean that hostage trading is a lucrative business. I didn't say it was a good one, I said it was lucrative. So there's a lot of money to be made in it, even if she's not worth that much. It's a slap in the face to Western propaganda that they've abducted her. But, that's the way it is. So, anyway, talk to people later. Have a good one.